Welcome to another episode of Open Contact TV. My name is Wendy Wolf, and this...
Oh, it's really me, Dave.
is Dave Yellen. And
This
today...
is our hybrid friend.
This is our hybrid friend. Possibly, you never know, looks a lot like one of our hybrid children. So one of the things we wanted to talk to you about today, among many, is the protocols of first contact, how this channel came to be, briefly, who we are and why. And so many of you may know me or recognize me, or thank all of you who are watching Dave and I today from my channel, Languages of Lights. I began that channel, that YouTube channel, about 6 years ago when I began speaking light languages. When I began speaking light languages, though, however, was a little bit into my journey. My journey truly began with the words I heard from Seth, you create your own reality. As soon as I heard those words and I looked up the numbers 1111, everything started. All of my first contacts started. So I wasn't sure where I wanted to begin today, but I'd like to begin with at least saying that, 1111. Today is May 1st. Happy May 1st, 2021, everyone. It is Beltane, this celebration of the 1st of May and May Day here. However, the number 11 and the numbers is what I really wanted to focus on just for a moment. And so 1111 is an awakening code. It's a code that we have sort of energetically, collectively agreed that would be sort of a code for opening contact with our higher selves, with each other, with higher dimensional beings and energies and entities. So when I began my journey, it truly began exploring the idea of creating my own reality. And in that exploration brought me to Daryl Anka channeling the entity Bashar from Sasani, the planet of Sasani, the Sasani people, of which there's long stories with all of that as well, which come into the idea of first contact specialists, first contact protocols, hybridization program, who we all are as humans, the hybrid races, what the hybrid 6th and 7th race mean, and what all of this means to first contact. So when I started my journey, that is how I began, was first connecting with the angels, lighting a candle, being intentionally opening contact with the angelic realms. That's truly how my open contact began. And then as intentionally beginning that is when I started to open up to a great many other things and other channeled entities and energies. And I started receiving information and telepathic messages and channeling in the craziest times and places, doing the dishes, being in the shower, and started having emotional responses to all of this information. I very early on found Bashar and realized something started clicking with me, that I was part of this, being a first contact specialist. Somehow I just knew when I heard it. The first time I heard someone asking in one of his events, am I a hybrid mother and do I have hybrid children? My little bells and whistles went off. I had no idea what that was or what it meant, but I started to cry because somehow I just knew it had something to do with me, and that's what I was. And from that time on, it has really been a flood of information. I started, when I very first found Bashar, I started this journal of mine that I kind of call my Bashar book, my Ascension Journal. And one of the ways that which we will be getting into as far as the protocols, one of the protocols of contact is in symbols, and one of the ways that I began opening and was guided to was to start writing down these symbols that we were given through Bashar from the Sirius constellation and the star system. And so he said at the time, if you write down these symbols, and there are 15 currently, and use them in the way that we're guided, that we're guiding you. And there is a video that goes along with this that you can purchase at bashar.org All of these, the protocols of first contact are also public information that can be downloaded for free from their channel. And this is where Dave and I are getting this information and have just been guided to share with all of you. So the sharing is really the main idea of all of this too, is how does sharing open contact with all of us and all of you and our ET friends. And so Dave was one day inspired to, I don't even really remember what you were inspired to, just look up Open Contact TV to see if it was even available. And it just happened that .com was available. And so it was...
Yeah, we were looking for a specialized channel on YouTube to be able to talk about specifically open contact, first contact, and promoting that idea.
Because my light language channel, Languages of Lights, was more geared toward sharing light languages, my journey with that, and helping people activate themselves. But what I realized was I started getting downloaded these symbols after using the contact symbols. I started getting these downloads of pages and pages and pages of symbols. I started dreaming of symbols. Dreams are part of one of the first contact protocols, as we shared in a video earlier about one of the ways that contact happens. So by using these symbols, I began getting downloads of all these other symbols, and then it started to open contact in me with more of myself, my multidimensional selves, opening contact with our counterparts. So that's another thing we want to really talk about today, is our counterparts, because part of the protocol is counterparts in other systems, star systems. So I think I'd like to probably just jump right into that. And I wanted to say, to begin with, that this channel has been from the beginning, and as was and is my Languages of Lights channel, has always been about the sharing. And how does that activate each other? How does that raise our consciousness? How does this raise our vibration when we share this information? So many of us have this push, this pull, this desire, this passion to share this information once we learn it, because we feel the trueness of it and how it resonates with us. And how does that all come into play with our hybridization, our DNA? How did things begin? How did we begin as human species? And how all this has to do with first contact protocols. And so I'm reciting this brief thing that I saying, I don't know, mantra that I learned through channeled entity called Theo through Abraham Hicks. Esther Hicks. Also, we'll share that link with you as well if you don't know who that is. And in it says, I, Wendy, see and draw to me through divine love those beings who seek enlightenment through my process. The sharing will elevate us both now. And that is really part of what all of this is to elevate us both now, in the sharing, and in sharing our process, my process. How did this all come to be? And how does all of this have to do with my personal life and my theme, what I came here to explore, my connections and contacts with these other beings and other space star systems, and how our connections and all of these things. So I just wanted to kind of begin with that, and sharing a little bit. If you wanted to, I don't know if you wanted to talk about this just yet, or if we wanted to jump right into the first contact protocols, because it sort of has a little bit to do with both.
I just wanted a little funny impact. But I do want to say also that the protocols of first contact are provided to us through Bashar, through Darryl Anka, and as it's presented to us Earthlings, my understanding is, first of all, everything is a perspective, and what we share is also our perspective, and our perspectives change over time, and we want them to. So all the things that we talk about are always based on our current now moment perspective of things. And as it was described by Bashar and also interpreted by us and myself, sort of like in Star Trek, how you have the prime directive that everyone's supposed to follow. Here we have protocols of first contact. And of all the consciousnesses and civilizations and extraterrestrials out in all there is, everyone also has their own ideas and perspectives and choices in how they want to experience their contact with other consciousnesses and societies and civilizations. And the way Bashar describes it, that these protocols that we're going to go through a little bit today are sort of an agreed upon method of how to go about having a first contact, the protocols to follow, as to not interfere with the civilization you're having contact with, and not to create anything that's not something that, from a civilization's point of view, but also the individual involved, they have to agree to it. And they might be agreeing to it in a higher level, maybe beyond their awareness of consciousness. But these are all things that were already agreed to. And as things change and move forward, as we always want to expand and grow, the agreements can change. They're always subject to change and alteration. Same word as change, but expanding. So the idea that we might have today of the things we want to do and want to agree to, want to have certain timings for, all those things are always subject to change. And we could also decide how quickly we want to progress through those experiences of the change. So I just wanted to mention that these are protocols of first contact as they were provided to us as a basis of what commonly seems to work best. And the Sasani would say that they are experts.
And we've done this before.
in contact with civilizations such as ours.
Yes.
In the place that we are in our ascension process, enlightenment and consciousness awareness. And as Wendy and I read through these things, we start connecting the dots in ways that even a month or two ago we never would have really connected the dots in that way, because our awareness is constantly changing and expanding.
Yes, it is. And I wanted to say that this actually is from Bashar.org as well, and this was a download in the video event that we purchased to. And I don't know if these are actually on their for download on their site, or if you have to purchase the event in order to get the link. I can't remember. But this is what basically they look like, and so this was given in, what was the name of the broad? We'll put the link.
I think it was preparing
for ET Contact. I forgot the name of the. We'll put the name to the link of the actual of Bashar event that he discussed these. But this was one of the things that they use as a tool to say for us to help us
get used to
what they look like and get around. As silly as it seems, because this is part of our belief systems that we're all human. The consciousness is right now is going to be dealing with. This is, what if one of these beings was really walking on the earth with us today, and how would we react? And so it helps us kind of get used to that idea. So I wanted to mention why we put that up and where it came from. And
thank you, Bashar and Daryl.
And thank you, Daryl.
So in the list that we have, there are 43 different steps of protocols to follow.
And we're just going to start at the beginning.
We're going to maybe do 1 through 9.
Yeah, we may get only through a few. We'll see. And
so as we read these to you, we'll offer our perspective and our perhaps experience
with it
relating to each of these steps. But really, what this is meant for is, what does it mean to you if you're watching this video? Obviously, there's some connection here, some connection of the experience of these types of things. So when I read this to you, and when Wendy reads it to you, what does it mean to you? What door does it open within you?
And I forgot, and I was reminded we didn't put the link, but we do have opencontacttv.com. So we actually can interact with people on there as well. So I just wanted to mention that if you wanted to share more information, we're starting, a forum and things like that to talk about more of these things. So I forgot to mention it earlier.
And also the Facebook channel,
yes,
Open Contact
we have an
TV.
Open Contact TV Facebook group as well, so please do join the group and the page, and we're interact there and share a lot of this information as well.
So how would you like to begin?
Well, I would say really...
Did you want to show some of these specific...
Well, I just not really... The reason I had brought these is... so I put these in my book, these symbols, and I drew them on a larger pad and have been sharing these on my Languages of Light's channel for a very long time, since the beginning, because it was part of my awakening process and my ability to receive multiple various light languages and codes. And then I was guided, as I was getting downloads of them, to start sharing them with people, creating them specifically for individual people to open contact with their own multidimensional counterparts, if you will, and activate the DNA with us and so forth. So I redrew them, and part of the reason we're guided to draw them is because it actually changes the brain synapses. So that's why I drew these out and have been sharing them. And actually, for number 11, which is I've used it so many times it fell out of the book. So number 11 is realize, and so today we're realizing open contact. Tonight is the CE5 that we shared about earlier, about initiating contact. What was it? Intentional.
So in us as humans, intentionally putting out the request for contact.
Our beacon, if you will, our telepathic beacon.
Yes.
And so today I feel like 11 is that magnification of realizing this reality, realizing this reality. So, yes, if you start at the beginning.
Okay, so the first step is discovery of the civilization. So obviously, when you're a higher dimensional consciousness, you never have access to all information all the time. You only really have access to the things relative to what you need to know when you need to know them. So you're always discovering new things. No matter what level you're at, there's always more to discover, there's more to know, there's more to see. So obviously there's a point of discovery. And a lot of that also has to do with wanting the excitement of discovering new things.
And this does go both ways. I wanted to add that I'm being reminded, too, that the discovery of the civilization, we also discovered their civilization. So at the same time, they're discovering us, maybe not at the same time, but at some point, we also discover their civilization. So they wanted me to remind us all that this is a two-way street as well.
And also keep in mind that all of these things are all happening simultaneously now.
Yes.
Together.
And so we're so linear thinking, we've got to not think linearly.
So the moment, let's say, some future timeline version of us discovers us in the future, that's also happening now. So
and that's where
there's all kinds of ways of looking at this and perspectives, and it is definitely, yes, mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing.
When you start thinking about it.
Well,
because at some point, there's a discovery of the civilization. How does that happen? Is it because of a telepathic type of communication? Is it because, and it likely does happen more in the way of you're sitting around thinking about stuff, and someone else in some other civilization somewhere in all
that is
also thinking about something similar, and all of a sudden there's a connection.
Yep.
Where as you're aware more that these connections actually occur, all of a sudden there's like, oh, hello, in your head.
I mean, there was a time when we humans didn't even think that they even existed, so why would we even be thinking anything like that? So now that we're thinking these things.
So, and there's a reason, as everything is orchestrated and nothing is coincidence, there's a reason why all of a sudden, throughout our world and reality, the idea of channeling and connecting to other things and higher dimensional things and just becoming higher dimensional, that it's a thing. It's not a couple crazy people thinking about it or trying to, move out of physical reality and floating away. It's a thing.
And really, when I discovered that this civilization existed, it was such an emotional thing for me that I had no idea why I was experiencing the feelings I was experiencing, and I realized right away I was somehow connected to them, and I had no idea how or why I even felt that, and it was very interesting.
And we'll get back to this a little bit later, but the idea of discovery of the civilization, we did a video not too long ago where we were playing with a certain frequency.
Oh yes.
And all of a sudden, some new
being
civilization
just
heard us and discovered us. For the first time. Now, of course, we discovered them at the same time.
It was really funny.
They didn't know we existed. They were surprised.
I mean, it really was
about the whole thing.
Strange. And that's what I was going to say about the discovery of the civilization is it's about the frequency. They discovered us, the Sasani also, through a variety of means, but it's about our vibration too, that they can hear us better now.
So number 2, observation of the civilization. Excuse me. So in normal terms, you would say you discover a new civilization. Let's say you're a space going race and you find a new planet and you discover that there are people on the planet. And you're going to now observe. So you hang out and observe. That's a step. You have to observe. You have to see what's going on, see where they're at. Now, if you start thinking in a little higher way, the observations are probably going to happen a little bit differently. And the way that you are observing, when you're able to detect vibration and thought patterns and the consciousness streams of things, you're going to be observing recognizable patterns of energy and frequency and things like that.
Good point.
And those patterns are going to tell you, oh, here's where this civilization is.
Yes.
Which is going to lead to number 3, determine the potential for contact.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if you wanted to say a little bit more of the observation part, but as you observe in whichever ways, and there are probably, let's say, ET races that they've chosen to be a little more physical, and they've got spaceships with computers and monitoring devices, and maybe it's just filled with crystals that are flashing, and that's whatever you could imagine is happening. they're using all those things to observe and determine the potential for contact. And
You're reminding me of all these television shows like Star Trek and all of,
they're
what was it?
they might sneak on the planet for a
with the
little bit with their
crystals.
tricorder.
How did they went to different places with the crystals? Remember?
Land of the
Land
Lost.
of the Lost.
In the pylons with the crystals.
So when you said that, it made me think of that as well. And you would want to observe a civilization first before, of course, you would want to initiate any kind of first contact, because you want to be within their belief systems. You want to, and as many of them said, when we're looking down and seeing you guys are still like, blowing each other up, we're like, maybe we ought to wait just a little while.
Well, also, as we're learning, the higher vibration the consciousness is, when there's an interaction with another consciousness, if they are too far away in vibration, it literally causes disruption.
Correct.
And if you have a civilization that is still in a low vibration, the disruption would be very traumatic for anyone who would be experiencing that higher vibration.
Correct.
So just like the idea that you see a UFO and they come and land and you get scared and run away, that's a reaction because your vibration isn't high enough to be able to be with them.
Exactly.
It's not because they're doing something scary.
No,
it's not because you're afraid of aliens.
Well, and I think many of us who've had that feeling, even with our own, in a moment of connecting with what we call God, our higher self, our higher power, the angels, when we feel so emotionally charged and in the state of blissful, like the gratitude that you can't describe. This is how I was feeling when I first met them telepathically and began to discover my own connections with them, my own counterparts there. It was a very emotional experience. All this stuff comes up within me still to this day. When their information, when I'm connecting with their vibration and they're coming in, sometimes it is very emotional because we feel like we I don't know, we don't deserve it. We're not. It's just all this stuff comes up that we don't even recognize until it happens, until we're in the contact. So they want to know, how are we going to react? For example, many of us will channel for civilization, and they may still be in their Renaissance period. Well, that it probably isn't going to be a good idea to land a spaceship in a civilization, although we have to say, how many stories do we know here on Earth where the spaceships have interacted with us, and look at how we've perceived them. Look at how we've hid the information, changed the information, altered the information, used it metaphorically. The people then, the humans then had to use metaphors even because there were not words to describe what they were seeing. And
throughout history, when contact was made, sometimes they weren't following the protocols of first contact because, maybe they weren't in agreement of them. Maybe they didn't know about them. Maybe they were newbies at the whole first contact thing, and they thought they knew what they were doing. And sometimes had results that they were not expecting.
Or irreparable, that they caused irreparable situations in that civilization that they really didn't intend and really kind of had no business doing, and that's why there's protocols.
Yeah, and because of the nature of how consciousness exists collectively also, there could be times that we don't even know about because we've agreed to not forget. Remember that there could have been a first contact that happened. It might not have gone as well as everyone would have liked, and we could have just decided, yeah, we're going to rewind and start over.
Kind of start over and
let's just say that didn't happen. Let's change things around a little bit and come back as a collective that did not have that experience and move forward from there and try it again in a couple of years.
And when we begin to understand things about parallel realities and infinite numbers of parallel realities, we begin to understand there are all those versions of Earth that exist right now in all of those ways, where it went really, really well, and we're already well surpassed in where we are now, and then the opposite of that as well. So where it did not go well and we just decided that it was too soon and we weren't ready, or it caused damage.
So the first three that we've talked about have been sort of normal 3D kind of concepts that you could expand to be, much more higher dimensional if you want, but you don't really need to do that, to grasp the idea. Number 4, it gets a little interesting. And you don't really fully understand number 4 until you read number 5, but I'm going to read number 4.
Okay.
If contact potential is high, choose a life or connection in the civilization.
Okay. Let's stop right there, folks. Because this is a juicy
So
one.
what does that mean to you? Before I read number 5, what
Say
does
it
that
again.
mean to
Read it
you?
again.
If the contact potential is high, choose a life or connection in the civilization.
Now, this is where many, 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 many of us start to understand this a little bit. We start to hear things, feel connections, whether it's the Sasani, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Lyrians, so on and so forth. Syrians. I knew right away, this is what happens to us when we find out about another civilization, they find out about us. All of a sudden, I began to understand, I am the counterpart to someone there who has decided as a first contact specialist to create a counterpart here in order to discover, to live in the civilization. I wish I had the quote from Bashar about what he says about why they do it this way.
Well, and the idea too is, as you gain awareness and consciousness, it is very common that you feel these connections with star seeds, other star systems,
where you go, oh my God,
you label them all whatever.
I had a reincarnation there. It's not that way. You have another incarnation there, but it's not an incarnation. It's not you became that. It's a split off of you. So, that you are already existing in all these places all at once. This is just one of them. And that's that familial connection that we felt.
And I like the term, choose a life or connection in the civilization.
A life or connection.
The idea of the connection is it's a very broad, defined term.
Life or connection.
And it's also good because oftentimes here as humans, we might feel a connection with even other people. Yes. What is that connection? We've never met them before.
And all of a sudden you're like,
you might be sitting at a restaurant and you see somebody sitting, at the table next to you, and you're like, I feel something about that person. I don't know what it is. And
even us meeting like virtually online here, if you want to call it virtually, but meeting a person online, just like we do, many of us now, all over the world, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I know you, I love you, I feel your vibration, I know you. I like it.
So we move to number 5, which helps to define number 4. Now remember, if contact potential is high, choose a life or connection in the civilization. Number 5, design the life to provide necessary elements for future contact. So now what this is explaining, number 4, is that you've actually created a life in the civilization to prepare for contact between each other.
So now we begin to understand.
You're not just finding somebody.
Everything's now. So now it's like you're creating it, and read it again about the creating the what?
Design
the life.
First you choose a life.
Now you get to design
the life to provide the necessary elements for future contact.
To provide the necessary elements for future contact.
So you're sitting somewhere, not in physical reality, creating a design for your life. As we talk about what's my purpose, you're creating all the things to happen in the life you're about to have to bring you to the point of having contact.
And then when we look back and we go, look at all the synchronicities, all the jobs that I've had, that we've had, we know every single job, situation, circumstance was part of this preparation of designing the life for first contact. When I very first found all of this stuff, I put a drawing of my string of the family crest from Bashar's family because it represents the vibration of first contact. And I wrote it in here. And it was many years later that I ended up actually acquiring their first contact crystal, which represents, and inside of it has their seal, which represents the vibration of first contact. So I was already designing my life, vibrationally speaking, to have the things I needed in place in order to become and recognize this was what I came to do, part of what I came to do. And I was a counterpart of them to do this, as well as lots of other civilizations that I'm just beginning to discover.
So in Bashar's book, he talks about a little bit sort of how he grew up.
Yes.
And
it was a good book.
I want to say that when a person is going through these processes of first contact, it's not necessarily one being consciousness that is just deciding, oh, I'm going to do this. It is a coordinated event. It is, if you're in your own civilization and you want to have first contact with this other civilization, and you want to design, create a life and design a life, there's typically a lot of engineering involved with the whole concept of it. So when we talk about everything, that there are no coincidences, that everything is
an orchestration.
But it's not only an orchestration between one little consciousness and another consciousness on another planet. It's a entire orchestration between the civilizations, which include collectively, because it's something that benefits the collective and all the collectives. So
I don't know how far we want to go, because that's a pretty big one right there too. Generating sightings.
So the next one is generate sightings and observe reactions and responses. So the idea behind that, as I see it, is you have this consciousness over here that has discovered the civilization and wants to create, a connection between this one over here. So this consciousness decides to create a piece of aspect of itself to be incarnated, born into this area over here.
Yes.
And a life has been designed to have synchronicities and all kinds of things happen to facilitate the contact between the two civilizations. And now this consciousness is orchestrating and participating in the idea of generating sightings for this piece of him counterpart.
Excuse me.
because now this counterpart over here needs to be prepared for the reconnection, because in our little
Yes.
world over here, we've got separation and we're not currently we don't get born into our physical reality understanding the complete unity of all things. So there has to be a process, which is partially the protocols of first contact, to start awakening this person to be back aware that there is this other person here who's really a version of himself.
I mean, for example, I remember now that when I became aware of all this, I started to remember things that happened in my life and when I was little, and dreams and certain things that had happened, that I was being shown, this is a time that you're in preparation. This was a time you were in preparation. You had to have that experience and that experience. And then I started to see all the way back to conception. It's that interesting, that it's that well orchestrated, and yet it feels like it didn't happen. Like I didn't pull the trigger for all that to happen until I was aware of it. But then you start to realize it's all happening right now.
So I do want to do a couple more steps. Number 7. Calculate the timing for various phases of contact. So
Throughout one's life?
Well,
I would
that's
say
what it
part
says,
of,
but,
yeah.
But that's basically, for instance, and in Daryl Anka talks about his experience. And for him, he had a UFO sighting. How did he react to it?
Right.
What steps did he take? What reactions did he have? Where did his vibration go when a spaceship flew over him? That was a higher consciousness, a higher vibration. Was he ready to have further contact protocols? So when you're able to see someone's vibration in multidimensional levels, you could get a pretty good idea of, are they ready? Are they not ready? What's the timing necessary involved? Are there more things that need to happen? Does there need to be another sighting or two? So all of this is part of the orchestration. The next step is guide synchronicity to prepare the connection individual. So just that concept alone is pretty mind-blowing.
It is pretty mind-blowing.
Because now, and you might now be feeling for yourself, a lot of this sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute.
Is this what's happening to me? Yeah. Is this what I am involved in one way, shape, or another? Because Bashar does say, one day we're going to be doing this with other civilizations, if we aren't already.
And I already am. So that's been an experience I'm having now with the counterpart I've discovered in another civilization, in a parallel reality Earth, in which they're experiencing things very differently.
So just the idea that this other consciousness over here, who is really being represented by a whole collective, besides the idea that it's you and a collective of you, in addition to more of that, are actually creating synchronicities in your life over here for the purposes of having contact.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So, and it's funny too, because, you sort of think of the idea of your angels are helping you with things, and, this is just a silly example, but, you're down on your luck and you get a water, you go in and walk into some place and the right person is there with the right thing, and they give you a piece of paper and say, call this phone number, and it turns out that this is exactly the right person that you needed to talk to help solve your problem. All these things. Just think in your life how many people
times that happened
were in the right place at the right time because there was somebody guiding synchronicity to prepare the individual for the connection and for the contact.
And I'm reminded too to tell everybody too, it's not just the okay, in this particular example, the Sasani and us having the agreement too and creating the synchronicities. This is orchestrated on many, many, many levels because your oversoul wants to have this experience. And so from a all the way up level, your consciousness is also preparing yourself for these things because overall, it also wants to experience this, like all that is wants to experience having a sixth and a seventh race of beings that has never existed anywhere in creation ever. So it's being orchestrated by all of us and our oversouls to do this now together on a much, much, much higher level. But yet the conscious connection between, say, Dave and I and the Sasani collective consciousness is just a small piece of that synchronistic puzzle, which is even more mind-blowing.
Because when you think about it, a lot of people feel this connection with a lot more than just one race,
right? And so you're.
I mean, how many people, might feel connected to, let's say, the Lyrans, but they also feel like they were a mermaid in a previous life. Well, that's a connection. And yes. what it actually means, everyone will get to find out in the proper timing. But these are all connections that you have for a reason to serve you and to prepare you for more contact.
I mean, there's just so many synchronicities like I learned about when I was learning about the stone speakers. And as soon as I saw the broadcast through Bashar, I thought, oh my God, I'm a stone speaker. I know how to do this. And yet Dave and I we're talking about how growing up, we've always collected stones and crystals and rocks and minerals and had the tumbler machine and all of the stuff and how he used to pan for gold and other things. And so these were all the synchronicities. Gold. We can even go back to that idea of gold, Anunnaki.
And it's funny because I never really found anything of significance.
No.
But I know how.
But he knows how.
I do know how.
So
I've spent a lot of time not.
So right away I start crying because I start thinking, oh my God, yes.
I was looking in spots.
I'm a stone speaker, and yet it was like, oh my God, I was collecting stones when I was a kid and this and that. I was like, oh my God.
So we need to finish with number 9 today.
Okay.
Because number 9 puts a very interesting perspective on 1 through 8.
Okay.
Number 9 is initiate the connection with the connection individual. So that means that all of these things were happening before there was actually a contact made.
So now we're initiating the contact. And so that's when so many of us start channeling. We start hearing things and we start to understand, okay, I've got this other being that's connected to me and they're talking to me and I can hear it's the Pleiadians or this dimension or that dimension or this civilization or that being and so you start to really begin, and now you're like, oh my God, I've just received a connection. I've received a contact from someone, somewhere, and I'm receiving and channeling information. It's like I've initiated a contact with another being or another civilization, and yet many of us realize, and we're learning more and more, it's not that you reincarnated, is that you actually have another fractal being of your oversoul consciousness having a Pleiadian or a Lyrian or a Syrian actual having a life and experience, and now you get to connect with each other and share those experiences, and each of you now becomes aware of the other. It's so crazy.
So a lot of you who resonate a lot with the Essassani, and the Sassani civilization will also find, if they wish to discover it, that they're really also connected to many other civilizations, star systems, things that you read on the internet.
And we share the DNA. I mean,
from all multidimensional levels, and we're, as humans now here, we have all of these things available to tap into.
Yes.
And it's sort of funny because sort of where we're sort of feeling at the moment, that as our sort of purpose seems to be, at least one of our joys and highest excitement is relating to the idea of open contact and the hybridization program and moving humanity to a higher place within the universe, that it only sort of makes sense that the people here doing that would have connections throughout cosmic history.
Of course. And that's why we're all having this conversation together. And I was even reminded, this is a weird synchronicity. I was just reminded, this is one of those things. When my aunt died, I don't know if you guys can really see this very well. It's a triangle crystal, and I can't even remember how long it's been now. So a couple of decades. And before she died, she told me that I had to have this triangle. Well, if any of you know the Sassani and many other of these civilizations, the triangle is part of the symbol of many of these civilizations, specifically the triangle of the Sassani, and the shape of the ships as well. So it wasn't until decades later that I discovered that the specialness of that triangle. And then I started to realize many of the phrases that she used to use were exactly what we like to call Basharisms. The way he says things, even some of the, I don't want to call it sarcasm, but sarcasm. And she would use exactly the same words and exactly the same tone. And I thought, shoot, she knew about Bashar before I did. It was like, I'm almost positive. It was like, and she knew there was something in me because she knew. And a lot of the stuff we've talked about does run in families where, and I think, and I'd like to maybe, as we conclude today, the connection that Dave and I felt when we watched Bashar channel his own father, I still get chills. I swear that it stands that because it's like watching my father or, stand up and talk and realize that, and at that time too, he was sort of handing over the baton to Bashar to say, you're in charge of Earth now. It's your turn to take over this now. And that says a lot about Daryl and Bashar and that connection. But it also did something and said something to me deeply about my connection to Dave, our connection, us just meeting a couple of years ago, how me sharing my channel was how we met, but the impact that video had still to this day, when I think about it, that is the first and only time I've ever seen Daryl channel Bashar, where Daryl stood up out of the chair. It was like his father's energy was so big that he had to stand up to channel him. And it was like, it was pretty
Profound.
very profound. But what was so weird for me was that I felt this like weird, deep connection to Dave with Dave and I don't want to say Daryl's dad, Bashar's father. And it was like, so, and even now, I realize our meeting had to, obviously the synchronicities have been set in place through the power out calls that we would be together, bringing this forth. And I've channeled my Echo is one of my Sasani counterparts, and I've channeled Echo, the being Echo, on my channel, on my Languages of Lights YouTube channel. So I've been doing this in bits and pieces in the Sasani collective consciousness, Epsilon, Epiphany, and Eclipse, their collective consciousness, which is a whole nother story. So I realized too that when we watched that, it was undeniable, the connection with first contact and first contact specialists and running in families, and our connection and why we're doing this and why we found each other, and even his connections to his own earth lineages and Hebrew and his DNA and all of this stuff. It's like truly mind-blowing. So we're very excited, as you can tell, to really share all of this in a bigger way and really focus on this part of our experience and my experience of first contact and open contact, and sharing this in a bigger way. So I like this idea of calling this the protocols of first contact 1 through 9.
So normally I'm more calm in my excitement, but I like to take a moment to jump up and down with Wendy in our excitement.
Because I do that a lot, and he laughs at me because I really do.
So I want it to be very obvious that I'm very excited about all of this.
Yes, he is. Yes, I am, and I'm really excited to have somebody to share it with me, and for us to share it with all of you. So it adds to my excitement. It doubles and magnifies my excitement. And that was another message about this month and the dates, that because once again, the date equaling the date, the number of the date, they told me this is an amplification of the mirror that we're, I can't even really describe what they're showing me, but the last month and then now this month with the repetition of the numbers of the dates is amplifying the numbers. And so it's not just the 3, for example, it's the 33. Today's number 11. And we even had a guest come over today. And one of the first things she starts talking about is how she's been seeing 1111 and repeating numbers and 555, and it's all crazy. She can't understand it. And what are all these synchronicities? And she's so excited about this new job she's getting and how all these numbers are like proving she's on her right path. And so Bashar's birthday in our time, as it equates to our linear time, is 1111. And so all of these synchronicities with me in my life in 1111 and numbers with Dave and I. So the excitement and the synchronicities go on. And as you can see, we're very excited about this. So thank you for sharing this time with us, and find us everywhere on Open Contact TV. We want you guys on sharing your experiences, your stories. What does this first contact mean to you? Does this I didn't want to say trigger, but trigger, awaken, illuminate in you your excitement and maybe your connections to all of this, and how we're demystifying it all, and this is what's happening. And we're very excited to greet and meet and be a part of our own hybrid children, them coming here to Earth, greeting them, and what it means to us, and us personally, Dave and I, what it means to all of us collectively, and how us sharing our fun with all of you, how it may inspire all of you. So that was part of my message today. Also about the magnification of the numbers is aspire to inspire. So I really like that.
It's beautiful.
I like it. So we're just receivers. So I receive guidance and information just like all of you do. So I think that's it for today. I think we're going to go have some dinner. And here we're already crossed our 1 hour mark. So
thank you all for the sharing.
See you
soon. Good day to you.
And good day to all.